Hey everyone, welcome to the Transgender Show. My name is Emily, I'm your host. Very excited about my guest tonight. It's Erin B. She is the wife of AnaBeQueerly, one of the Twitch streamers here in our community, and one of our former guests. Hi Erin.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm very good.
Turn
Night
up
here, but I guess it's still today.
Still counts?
Yeah.
So, how long have you and Anna been together?
Oh, you're gonna make me do math again. Well, we met. Oh my gosh, I'm bad at years. But we've been married for 4 years. That's
Okay.
that I know for sure.
And so let's
we probably met 3 years before that.
Okay.
If I had to guess, yeah.
So we're at about like 7 then.
Yeah, more or less. She'll tell me if it's wrong.
One of the things that I'm super excited about for this episode is having a spouse on of a transgender person. And the reason is that as a trans person, one of the most difficult things is coming out. And on top of that, one of the most difficult parts of coming out is coming out to your spouse. It's the one that they have the most fear about, the most trepidation. So I'm excited to be able to get your perspective of that, the perspective of the partner.
I'm excited to get it.
Awesome. When did Anna officially come out to you?
Oh yeah. That's a kind of a difficult question because actually even before we were dating, we had talked about it in a way. So honestly, like probably then, which would have been, I don't know, a couple of months before we probably started dating. She told me that, she had these feelings of like wanting to be a woman. So I guess it's like the coming out moment, but it wasn't like I'm trans, it took some time for her to get there and for me too. Well, I think that's probably very different than a lot of people's experience with their spouses, but I think it really helped our relationship to like always be, having been open about that from the very beginning, even before we were dating each other. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Makes it a lot easier. How did that topic come up?
I don't remember how it came up. I think we were talking about how we liked each other, and just sort of talking about our feelings. And I wasn't really ready to date someone at that moment, so I was talking about that for myself, and she was talking about herself and told me this. I think maybe she told me because she wanted me to know if we started dating. I don't know, but yeah, we were having a heart to heart, I guess. That's how it came.
And how did that initial discussion go from your perspective? Was there did you have any trepidations? Did you have any fears? Like what kind of kicked in for you at that moment?
Yeah, definitely. I would say like, we weren't dating yet. And I think when I heard that, it was a surprise, and probably I started to rethink it, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't date, but we did. Obviously it went well. Yeah, so I don't know if fear is the right word. I don't think I had anything to be afraid of at that time. I hadn't made any commitments, but yeah, definitely, like, it made me question what I wanted, I guess. Yeah.
Did you sit down and do a ton of research? Did you know anything about what being transgender was? I mean, I know she didn't present it as being transgender.
Right. I probably didn't know very much about it at that time. And no, I don't think I did do research about it. I sort of just took her word for it. She spoke into professionals about it, so I sort of thought she knew more about it than I did, which obviously, like, maybe I should have done some research, but I didn't. I think she explained it well, so
okay.
I was able to understand, I guess.
So she was at a point when she came out to you where she had enough understanding of herself. Maybe she wasn't fully ready to come out as trans, but she knew enough of it to be able to have that conversation. That makes it kind of easy and makes it lucky for you.
Definitely, yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think it definitely made the transition easier for me because I was there like every step of the way, pretty much. Of course, she had this realization before meeting me, and so maybe that was the coming out moment of like, hey, this is a thing about myself that I'm dealing with, and that is true. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good to know. But from then on, like every next step in the transition, like we did together.
Mm-hmm. So did you proceed with the dating from a dating perspective? I know you weren't ready for a relationship, but did you kind of think that maybe you were just going down the just friends route, or was that how you guys approached the relationship in general?
I started to remember and like piece timelines together. Yeah, definitely at the time, like I think the thing I had been saying in that conversation was like, I like you, but we need to just be friends for now.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, it didn't work that way. We tried to just be friends, but like we clearly loved each other. So yeah, so we started dating, I think, pretty quickly after that. It's probably just a couple of months, but yeah, we were like, let's hang out and like be friends. And then it's just like, oh, we're dating now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I had actually a similar story with my last relationship. It was the same type of thing. I told her that, at that time I was identifying as a cross-dresser, and she wasn't comfortable with it. She kind of couldn't deal with it, and she's like, maybe we should just be friends. And then so we did some friends things, and we're pretty soon we're like, yeah, this friends thing isn't gonna work, is it?
It's not gonna work. Actually, that is a beautiful story. Yeah, I think the reason that I wasn't ready for a relationship wasn't because of this. It wasn't like, oh, that's news. Hold the brakes. I mean, that may have happened. I don't know, but it was just my own personal, the place where I was in personally. Like, I need to be single for a minute. But yeah, I think that's beautiful, and I think that's sort of how it goes, right? You think maybe you're not comfortable with it, but you're like, you know what? I really like you. I like spending time with you, and I think you're beautiful. So let's keep hanging out, you know?
I think part of the trouble in coming out to a spouse, I think the trouble to coming out to anyone, but especially the partner that you're with, is the natural inclination for us to jump all the way to the end. You know, the far out scenario, the worst case scenario. Did you find yourself doing that, or how did you kind of avoid doing that and just go with the in the moment, enjoying that?
Well, at that time, I think it wasn't. We weren't connecting those dots. But later on, certainly, like when Anna started to transition, you know, like seriously, then of course, yeah, you start to think of like, where's this going to end? What's the worst case scenario? You know, nobody plans to get divorced or expects to get divorced, but it happens. And you have to like, I'm not so proud as to think that I'm like just above that just because I don't know, am more serious than other people. That doesn't seem right. So, you know, you have to acknowledge that like, you don't know what's going to happen. And of course you do fear that. I don't know if I avoided thinking about it. I think you have to consider it, but what we did was honestly just communicate about it and say like, okay, I'm not sure if I'm going to be okay with any step of this person. I can't say that I'm like gonna be okay with it or that I'm not gonna be okay with it. Honestly, like the example that you just said, I think kind of shows that. You know, you think like I'm not okay with that, but then actually you are. You know, you can't make promises about how you're gonna feel in the future. You can't say like, okay, everything's gonna be good, but you also can't say I'm never gonna be okay with this, because if you try to be, it's totally absolutely possible.
It's not the right thing to do either of those, to say no, I can never accept this, and I can accept all of this, and yeah, let's go.
Yes, exactly. Both ways, you're putting yourself in a corner that's going to make you feel trapped. So absolutely, I think that, you know, we kind of took it one step at a time, and it was helpful for me that Anna said like, okay, you know, if something's not comfortable with you, we can kind of press pause on that. We can talk about that. And I think the scariest things are, you know, the ones that can't be reversed. But yeah, you take it one step at a time. And it's like, I mean, it probably helps that I'm a progressive person, but some things that we associate with femininity there's nothing, biological or like, it's just social, like like you say, like cross dresser, like what what makes a dress for women and not for men, just society. So it's like, if you look at even just history and cultures, like males in all sorts of cultures wear skirts or dresses or makeup, and they have even in our own culture in history, right? So it's like, if I don't think it's wrong for a man to wear eyeliner, lipstick, or have nail polish or wear a skirt, what's the next thing, and why is that wrong? I never believed any of it was wrong. I want to say, it's just sort of like, you don't know what you will be comfortable with, but ultimately it's like those lines are not really real. It feels like if you imagine the end, then it's over some sort of line. But when you take it one step at a time, you discover you're looking for the line and you're like, oh, I never found it. For most people, transitioning is an inherently slow process. Maybe not for everyone, but I think, even just going through the process works. Like, it takes time to change your name. It takes time to like apply for surgeries and things. So, that gives me a lot of time too. It doesn't happen overnight.
Got a question from the audience. Was it Anna's incredible charisma and humor that made it easier to adapt to the changes, or was it your shared faith, or a combination?
I mean, she is incredibly charismatic, but I don't think that was it. It's a very good question. I think it was love, honestly, and commitment. I think both of those things. The fact that we are both like fully committed to our marriage and each other first is important. I do believe that in a marriage, like, both people have to be willing to put the other person number one always, and it has to go both ways. It's very important. But it means that for me personally, like, I'm always Anna first. I'm always putting her happiness first, but I also trust that she's doing the same for me. And I really think that when both people do that, both people end up happy. Maybe if your spouse is transitioning, you have some fear that it's like, it's my happiness or hers, and maybe it feels like it can't be both, but it's not true, because we're both very happy.
The thing with marriage, just in general, is you're two people, you're going through life, but we change throughout life. And that's what happens a lot of time with the marriage, is we change apart, we change separately. We don't include each other. We don't like have this open dialogue. And I think in a way, maybe being transgender and going through all these steps and having to talk through all these steps, and are you comfortable with this? And I want to do this now. And that, it kind of forces that communication that a lot of other relationships miss.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it forced us to communicate about things, and I mean, I don't know if we would have been as good at that otherwise. That's a really good point.
Have you found any new struggles since you started transitioning?
I've had fewer struggles since then. Honestly, since like the farther we've gone through the transition, it's actually been easier for me. Maybe just through practice. I don't know. I'm honestly pretty bad at communicating. And I think it's different for every person, but I need some time sometimes to work out my feelings by myself before I can articulate them in a way that isn't just like maybe me crying or like just in a way that makes sense and isn't like too emotional for me personally to handle. So sometimes for like a day, I won't be able to talk about something that I'm feeling, but it's important to bring it up. And what's helpful for me is that when I'm upset, Anna asks what's wrong. Like, she can tell, and she pushes me to be like, what's wrong? So I think maybe the best tip is, if your partner's upset, push them a little bit. Not too much. Like, sometimes people do need some space, but like, it's sometimes people, always, they need to know that you're there and that you're listening, and you can say like, okay, but I'm going to ask you again tomorrow.
You need your time to process and to come up with your thoughts. It's important for both sides to make sure the communication keeps going.
Yeah, the communication needs to be open from both sides. So you have to push yourself to communicate, even if it's just like, I can't talk about it today, but I will tomorrow, you know? But then the other person also, like, if you're on the other side of that, like, be the one to keep asking. Because, like, that's been helpful for me to have Anna do that for me. And I imagine it's helpful when I do it for her too.
So you mentioned, you know, being in touch with your emotions and things like that. How has HRT been for you guys? I hear a lot of, you know, things. I just started mine, so I'm not super familiar, but I've heard a lot of, you know, like, you know, the mood swings and kind of moodiness and crying a lot, being more emotional. Has that been a difficult thing for you to traverse?
Honestly, like, it's been a bit of a bonding experience, you know? I never expected that my partner would also, like, you know, have PMS. It's just great. And so it's been a beautiful thing. We have different symptoms, but definitely there are mood swings. But no, I wouldn't say it's been so difficult. I think, you know, something about us both being women and having that experience, we can talk about it openly. You know, it's just like, are you on your period? Okay. You know, I mean, I don't usually say that the first time. Usually she says it first. Yeah, it's been more exciting than anything to kind of, like, you know, see our cycles match up, and it's like, it's quite beautiful to be able to share something like that, where, like, if you're in a hetero relationship, usually it's just like, well, that's just something I deal with and you don't understand. But now it's like we can really share that, and I really love it personally.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was surprised to hear that, because I figured it would kind of go 50-50 if it was possible that they would actually kind of sync up if your hormones levels.
It's hormones, right?
Yeah.
So why not? Seems to have happened. I mean, I don't know science, but
either that or Anna's just a really good actor, huh?
Really good at acting grumpy with me for no reason sometimes.
What were some of your biggest fears? What have they been along the journey?
Just the fear of not knowing how I would feel, because, like, I'm a straight woman, so never, you know, pictured my life being like this. I've never really been, like, strongly attracted to women, so it was just sort of the fear of, like, what if we, you know, what if we fall out of love? What if, like, it's not enough? That's the fear, I think, is that, like, what if this just becomes a friendship? That's not what either of us want. Yeah, just not knowing, like, because you can't know the future, and you certainly can't plan for your own feelings. It's honestly been good. We came out, you know, to my family, and my grandfather said something I thought was so wise. He said, you know, love covers a lot. I was like, that's so true. It's just like, you know, if I wasn't already married to you, maybe we wouldn't be here, you know, together. But we are, and it's amazing, and we love each other, and, like.
Well, and I think that, like, the sexuality, the sex question in the relationship, you know, is the next big one of, you know, how is this going to work if we're both women? I'm not a lesbian, the whole thing. But then, you know, the other side of that coin is, again, every relationship, every marriage goes, you know, goes through sex troubles. Like, there are plenty of sexless marriages out there that are hetero and, you know, normal and all fine. So.
Yeah, and, like, really, you don't need a penis to have sex, to be honest. Like, we all know that. Like, why is that so scary?
Yeah. And even besides it, you know, they make plenty of great toys. It's
gonna be fine. You'll be fine. Yeah.
Do you define your sexuality any different now?
Yeah, it's a good question. Honestly, like, I'm married, so it just all feels a little bit irrelevant, but not usually. I do find myself, like, attracted to a wider variety of people now, but I also, like, know a wider variety of people, so that might be related. You know, most of the time it's still, like, if I'm watching TV, it's like dudes. I'm like, that guy's hot, you know? It's more or less the same, but I'm very attracted to my wife, and that's how it should be when you're married, so that's good.
Have you noticed any changes in personality outside of emotions, communication, humor, empathy? Has any of that kind of stuff changed and evolved in your relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I think that transitioning has been a healthy thing psychologically, and there's many benefits that come with that. Transitioning certainly has made Anna a happier person, and that makes me a happier person.
When
For
we
sure.
talked before, you mentioned that you never felt trapped or cornered. You always felt empowered. What were the things that Anna did to help you with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. You don't want either of you to feel trapped. I think what was helpful for me was that, yeah, I was constantly like acknowledged, and I knew that I was being put first. Knowing that I was being considered and heard, and that like Anna was willing to take it at my pace. I think that really helped. Where she would say like, okay, if you are uncomfortable, we press pause, we take a look at this, and we talk about it. Nobody wants to feel trapped. It's important that you, as the person coming out, feel that you're not trapped, and that's what I want for my wife. She's feeling trapped in this identity that's not hers, and that's not what I want.
No, that doesn't
I
make
don't.
for an equal relationship either, because
Yeah,
then one person's
exactly.
hiding or keeping away from some part of themselves.
At the moment when you're having that conversation, it feels like it's me or it's you. It feels like you can't have both. Now, it's not true, but it doesn't make the feeling less scary. So both parties need to be willing to at least like try to compromise or to meet in the middle, and to say like, okay, here's what we'll try 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's try this, see how it goes. Let's try that, see how it goes. And like, yeah, I think it was helpful for me to feel like, it wasn't just happening with or without me. Because that's something that might make people feel like you can't talk about it, right? If your partner's not willing to at least talk to you about how you feel, they're just saying, I'm doing this,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, well, I guess I can't say anything bad,
Yeah.
I can't talk about how I feel uncomfortable, and that I think can break the marriage. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I think if you're trans, you have to be like,
Mm-hmm.
you just have to do it. I think the partner needs to be involved in the process, but the trans person's partner also needs to be willing to, acknowledge that this is the thing that's going to be the healthiest and happiest. And there's no two ways around that.
Again, going back to that kind of black and white sort of thing, neither of you can put down the ultimatum. Like if
Yes.
you have to be willing first to keep the relationship together. That has to be the thing that both of you are willing to do.
Yes.
Then I
I
think,
think
like
that's
you
a
said,
really good way to put it.
the
Yeah.
second thing is you have to be willing to put your partner above you. Like you have to at least be willing to try that.
Yeah.
And then you just can't put down any ultimatums. Let's just say let's go through this and take it slowly, take it step by step, and see how it's going to go. What would your advice be for a significant other who just found out that their partner is trans?
Be kind, first and foremost. I think that especially if it comes as a shock, you might start to put up walls or feel defensive or feel like you have to protect your interests. But my advice is that this is harder for the trans person than it is for you. It just is. And that doesn't mean feelings are not valid, and you do need to, be able to talk to them about them with your partner. But realize that, however long it takes for you to realize, try to understand that your partner needs your support unconditionally. That's absolutely what they need. And it's really hard for them to be going through this. They've been dealing with this their whole life, and they really can't be happy without it. Not truly. And I think part of the reason people feel like they've lost something or like their partner is gone is because they had an idea of who this person was and what their relationship was that has actually been a lie. you thought you were happy in your relationship, but this person isn't happy in their relationship. Like, they're happy with you, maybe, but they're not happy with them. And you can't be happy in a relationship if you're not happy with yourself, right? Really put your partner first. Don't hide your feelings, but recognize that, like, they really need you. Support them, and if you need to take it slow, but be there for them.
Were there any steps throughout the transition to this point that you've pushed back on, and where you've used that right to pull the brake a little bit?
No, honestly not. Yeah. So that's the thing, is that Anna said, if there's anything you're not comfortable with, we will sort of pull the brake. But we never got there. Every step that we went to, it was like, oh yeah, this is okay, this is fine, or even this is fun. There's something fun about experiencing it together. I remember it must have been shortly after we got married. She wanted to try makeup, and I don't wear a lot of makeup, and at that time it was much less even. So I really didn't have very much, but I was like, okay, let's try it. And it was fun. Yeah, so it was fun, like, to try, like, let's put on some makeup. And she felt so happy when she saw her face. And, like, honestly, my makeup, like, wasn't for her face. It was like, the colors weren't right. So we were like, we got to get some better colors. And so we bought, like, a bunch of makeup, which is fun for me also. But, sometimes taking those steps together is an adventure, and it's fun. And you can be married, but also gal pals. It's kind of nice.
Where are you in her transition? I remember when we had our conversation that bottom surgery was mentioned. Is that something that you are confident in and are both confident in and are moving forward with?
Yes, we are moving forward with the bottom surgery. We're on the wait list. Everything's on pause. It should be coming up. Yeah, we're in Canada, so it is covered by healthcare in our country, which is
lucky dogs.
Really lucky, yeah, and that made it a lot, easier in the not emotional way to go forward with that. Yeah, I think that was, of course, something I originally was not sure about. In marriage, like, there's always sex issues. There's ways to have sex. Like, it's gonna be fine. And I think, yeah, it's about putting your partner first. And I think I'm more confident because we've had these other steps first, and they've all gone fine. She's living now out full time, and it's not a problem for me. So I can't imagine that this is going to be a significant additional problem. Yeah, and yeah, even if it's a minor problem, like, it's definitely one we can get over. And I know that, I'm not going to feel pressured to do anything I'm not comfortable with. She's, obviously the same. I'm not going to pressure her to do things she doesn't want to do. So I feel good about it. Yeah. I know it's something that's going to make her really happy, and that's the thing that's made me happiest so far. So.
Yeah, that dovetails into one of the questions here that I didn't think was going to. So that's great. Do you find that since Anna's started living her more authentic self, that she feels, do you notice more confidence in her and just more comfortable in her own skin?
Actually, I have a story. I think I told you last time. Yeah, before she came out, it's a really stupid thing, but we would go to restaurants. Like, if we went to a fancy restaurant, she was very self-conscious about me. She would be self-conscious about, like, the way I was eating, and, like, she's like, you put your elbows on the table. I don't know if that's a real thing she said or not, but for example, it seemed so stupid to me. Like, I didn't care, but she was worried about it, and she was just nervous the whole time. It was to the point where I was like, we just can't go to fancy restaurant. That's gonna be our life. Like, I'm married to this person who can't handle going to fancy restaurants with me. She's too self-conscious. We're just gonna never do that. But since she started transitioning, even when it was, like, way more likely that, like, early in the transition, when, like, people would be more likely to be staring, she was chill. We would go to a fancy wedding or something, and she had a great time just being able to wear women's pants, not even a dress, And it was like after that I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, it wasn't me. She dressed up feeling like she had to be looking like a man, and she's not a man. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, it's even these small things that you don't connect to being related to that at all. I never thought it was related to that, but now I realize it totally was. So absolutely, way more self-confidence. It almost seems ironic, but it's not at all. Because you're living your true self. We all feel more confident when we feel like we're in our own skin,
Yes. How did your friends and family react?
Yeah, of course. I'm mostly positive, luckily. Yeah. A couple of outliers, but for the most part, yeah, the people closest to us have responded positively, and we're really lucky with that. We have supportive parents and siblings, and even and friends, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we're lucky to have had generally positive reactions. I mean, I think you'd be so lucky to find a trans person who doesn't have one person who reacted negatively, but for us it's been overall a success story in that way. Yeah, we're really, really lucky.
Did you have any fears going into it, both of you coming out then to your parents?
I think Anna was a lot more afraid than I was. So maybe, I don't know if I would have been afraid if she wasn't, but maybe there was just no room for me because she was just so worried about it. I was like, it's gonna be fine. I had to be there for her. But no, I think, I know my family, and that at least my parents and my brother would be fine. I knew they would be fine because I know them. Sometimes telling someone that doesn't make it less scary,
Yeah.
So I know my parents are gonna be fine because of the way that they've acted towards me in the past, things that they've said in the past. There's no number of times that I can reassure Anna of that before she comes out to it's going to make it less scary, unfortunately. But yeah, I kind of knew our lives been, or at least my life is very heteronormative in general, but my parents have always been open, and I'm sure that my mom has said things like, if you did have a girlfriend, that would be okay. Or I know once she said that if she didn't like a boyfriend that I brought home, she just wouldn't say anything. She wouldn't disapprove of someone, because there's just no point in that. And I think she understood that if you do that, you make your child choose between you and the person that they're in love with. And for most of us, that's an easy choice. It's not mom. Yeah, I won't say it was easy for them. It's hard to hear. Of course, they also had their image of what my life is going to be like, and now it's a little harder. So, of course, it wasn't easy, but they're very accepting. We still have a good relationship with both of our parents. Yeah.
Did either of them express anything specifically? Were there any particular fears that they had that they?
No. I'm sure they do have specific fears, but they didn't say anything specific.
She stuck to her word.
They understand it's a personal and sort of private decision that we didn't take lightly, so they just sort of kept it to themselves, I guess.
Well, I just love going back to what your mom's perspective. That was another situation where the ultimatums are
right.
ultimatums do not help. Yeah,
I've never responded well to that personally. As soon as there's an ultimatum, it's over, right? The relationship's over already. I think you can't give someone an ultimatum and expect to get what you want out of it, right? It's putting up a fight. And I understand if it sometimes feels necessary, but it's a really good point. Ultimatums never help build a relationship. Let's say that.
Did the perspective of your family or friends or colleagues in work affect any of your decisions or any of your kind of thought process?
No, I I think I've like kind of realized this about myself recently is that like I'm not that worried about what people think other people think. um, so maybe that was part of it. It's like if they aren't willing to accept the person that I'm married to, then they don't accept me, and that's that, right? And like if you don't accept me, you don't accept me, so like we're not going to be friends. Like we're just not. So no, I wouldn't say that it affected my decision at all. Am I going to let my friends and coworkers like not let me make me not support my spouse? Absolutely not, right? The main challenge for me was like kind of that now I had to kind of come out. Work was the place where I like didn't come out right away. I came out to my coworkers, not like officially. It wasn't like, guys, my wife is trans. It was just like I would just mention it casually, and people were like, "Oh, okay."
Just don't make a big deal of it. Nobody else does, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, she's trans. So I teach English as a second language. That's my job.
Okay.
So this is a challenge. So for a long time, I just had sort of a rule where I just didn't come out to any of my students. It's just a secret from the students. At the place where I work, you get a lot of students from Saudi Arabia specifically. It's not a great country for the gays. So, there was a time when I pretty much all men from this country, and it was sometimes scary for me. They start making jokes, homophobic jokes, and it made me feel quite threatened. But
Wow.
It's actually been better since I broke that rule, and I've been telling everyone that I have a wife. They don't usually see her, but just mentioning casually that I have a wife, kind of signals to people that maybe like homophobic jokes are not chill in my class.
Okay. Yeah, those aren't going to fly here. It's not going to impress anybody.
Yeah, we're just not going to do that. Also, now I teach on the internet, which I have a lot more control over what's talked about in my room, so that's good.
Mute.
Yeah. But that was, I think, the main challenge. It didn't affect my decision, but it was just hard to know, like, is it safe for me to tell people that I have a wife, never mind a trans wife? Sometimes even just like that first concept is like a no-go for a lot of people. So that was the main challenge, but it's been easier since I just started telling everybody that I have a wife. I'm always telling anecdotes, and I'll just say like, oh yeah, my wife this, my wife that, and people just sort of, oh, okay. Like you said, you don't make a big deal out of it, they don't make a big deal out of it. And I think that the power dynamic is a factor, absolutely. I'm the teacher, so they have to respect me. I'm not saying that this applies to other contexts, but for me, an element of protection in that.
What have you learned about yourself and Anna through this transition?
I think that I've learned that, oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, like so many things that I can't even quantify them, honestly. Like, I think that I'm just a totally different person in a good way. Like, I'm a more tolerant person. I would have always considered myself to be tolerant before, but like, it's so much more now. I think that I've learned things about myself. Yeah, that like, sexuality is very fluid. We all know that, but you never necessarily know it about yourself until you're like, oh, well, here we are. So yeah, I think I learned that, and I learned about Anna that she was, self-conscious about this, and now she is a beautiful, confident person. I think it all feels like it's just the way it always was, but it's not, I guess. So it's hard to say like I learned this or this is different, because it just feels like this is the way it was always meant to be. Like, yeah, I guess it wasn't always like that. If I look back, yeah, I think that it's for me made me definitely a better person and more careful about the things that I say, and I think that helps everyone.
How has the streaming and her being out so publicly as a trans person, how has that been for you?
It's no problem for me. I'm so glad that she can feel comfortable enough to stream on the internet. I love that. Obviously I recognize why it's important for there to be representation in platforms like this, and so I'm really proud that she is doing that.
The follow up in Peach's question, of course, was does she have any diva moments that you have to deal with?
Diva moments? Oh no, like for streaming?
Uh-huh.
I don't think so. No, she's too nice.
I love this question. Have you noticed any things turning up missing either in your makeup bag or in your closet that
in my closet? No, we're different sizes. So unfortunately I can't really share clothes.
Sort of a blessing and a curse at the same time.
I don't know if I want to out her, but she's 6 feet tall, you guys, and I'm 5'2", so it's different. No, we share everything that is possible to share anyway. So, like, it's not my makeup bag, There's like the thing in my makeup bag because I like them and Anna does them, but like, if she wanted to use it, I wouldn't have a problem with that. No, we share everything. So. Mm-hmm. Except, we don't share clothes because it just physically is like difficult.
Is there anything else that you can think of in closing that you have as advice for young trans people, closeted trans people that are afraid of that conversation with their spouse or significant other?
I mean, it's not going to be easy, of course, like you already know that, but I think the thing to remember is that like it is going to make you happier in the end, one way or another, right? Even if the worst thing you're imagining happens, like the relationship fails and whatever, you'll always be happier living your authentic life, and it's worth having that conversation. And it is possible, right? It is possible for it to be a beautiful, healthy marriage or relationship or whatever you want to have. It's absolutely like, know that either way you're going to be happier, but like it doesn't have to be a disaster. If your partner is like willing to try, it can be beautiful. You can't control what they are willing to do or not, but like try to involve them, because if they are willing to earnestly like try to stay in this relationship and love you the way you are and love you for who you are and put your happiness first as they should, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be fun. That's what I would say. Like, if they're really willing to treat you the way you deserve to be treated by your partner, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
You're going to have fun.
Well, I wish that a larger majority of the women out there were like you, because I don't think that that's the case. And I think that she really got lucky in stumbling across you.
I mean, I got lucky too. She's pretty amazing. So.
Yeah, we think she's okay, right?
I mean, like...
Erin, if you were to give one piece of advice regarding how to love yourself after coming out, once you decided to step out into the light, for a trans person, from your perspective, what is some advice you have for learning to love yourself?
Honestly, it's kind of like some advice that I tell my students who are learning English. When you have a goal, sometimes it can be difficult in a long process because you see where you want to go and you feel like you're not there. Sometimes if it's a really slow process, you feel like nothing's, and I think that's like why, you have transition Tuesday. It's important. Don't look at where you want to go. Look at where you came from. Applies to English and transitioning. I just realized. So it's like, look at how much happier you are now than when you started. Look at how much more you like your own reflection in the mirror. Obviously, not going to love everything. Literally nobody that I know loves everything that they see in them.
True.
And, you know, most of us don't get to look like Instagram models. There's lots of photos showing that even Instagram models don't look like Instagram models, right?
True. Yeah.
So don't, try not to focus on where you want to go. Look at where you came from, and say, yeah, you know what? I love myself more now, and I feel more like myself. So if you need a reminder that you've come so far and what you're doing is worth it, maybe try that.
Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. I thank you so much for being willing to be on the show just in general, but to be so open and honest and answer some of those really deep and probing questions, phrasing, and just being willing to share everything. I really hope that this helps a lot of our trans and non-binary, either closeted or young people that either watching this live, see it later on Twitch, or find it on YouTube. And I hope it really helps because, as I said from the very beginning of this, I think that coming out to your significant other is one of the most difficult parts of being trans. And your advice here, your personal feelings and everything, I think are really going to help. So thank you so much for being here, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. I'm glad I could be here.